Go. Hello and welcome everybody to our live stream this evening. I'm Dave Casler, amateur radio call sign KE0OG, coming to you live, sort of, 1 minute delay, from beautiful Ridgeway, Colorado, where it is currently 83 degrees with 30% relative humidity. It's quite a bit cooler than it has been. We've had some 90 degrees, even some upper 90 degrees, but I think we're mostly lower 90 degrees. I've never seen it over 100 at our location at 7,000 feet above sea level. I guess if all the glaciers melt, we'll be under 7,000 feet above sea level. But that's according to the 1927 vertical datum. Anyway, here we are. And it was kind of a beautiful day. I spent the day rolling up a bunch of Coax and doing some measurements and so on. I'm going to be putting out my ARRL video to accompany my last Ask Dave video. The new QST arrived today, so if I get this video done tomorrow, then I'll be in pretty good shape. My assistant is off at a church boys camp and will be gone the rest of the week. I had him Monday and Tuesday, and this coming week I'll just have him on Monday. So we'll try and get some more videos out. I put a video out yesterday that seems to be about a fairly controversial issue, I guess, and that has to do with this proposed or rulemaking petition from a consortium of basically high-frequency traders who want to make a lot of money. And one of the key links in their ability to do that is to have a HF data link, because it's much faster, much by a millisecond, than going over a fiber optic cable. So there you go. Anyway, let's see what we've got here. Dale Smith checked in. Greetings from N4TAQ. Dale in very wet and rainy Kissimmee, Florida. And Harry Rundle, hello, Dave and fellow Augies from AC3EK in Overlea, Maryland, 81 degrees, 60% relative humidity, calm weather. Sounds like it's actually probably a fairly pleasant time to sit out in the shade. Harry Rundle says, hello, Dave from AC3EK again. As reported, 81 degrees, 60% humidity, calm evening. HF bands were fair to good today. Yeah, there was talk of RF or a radio frequency blackout due to some shenanigans taking place on the surface of the sun. I don't know if there's somebody up there that plays pitcher to these sunspots that sends them back out again. But they've batted quite a bit of junk our way here. You would think that the sun, given how much junk it emits, and it emits a lot, it would be, you think the solar, our star would be shrinking with all this, but apparently it's such a tiny percentage of the solar mass that that's not an issue. Now, it will become an issue in a few billion years when the sun runs out of hydrogen and it starts burning helium, converting that to lithium and heavier elements. And at that point, it becomes, I guess, a supergiant, something like that. And it starts to expand. I mean, it becomes a dull red star like Betelgeuse, and expands, and it will swallow all the planets. So, oh well, here we go. Okay, let's see. Lefty says, good evening, Augies, from Davenport, Iowa. Nice breeze and sunny today. Optical Man Jeff, Hello, Dave, and all Augies from Sioux Falls, South Dakota, where it is 81 degrees and partly cloudy. Pete Dayton's channel says, greetings, Dave, from Stewart, Florida. KE0OG IRD, 89 at 8:30 p.m. Just ordered a Yaesu FT991A for my station, and your thoughts on this radio. It's a nice radio. It's a perfectly good radio. The radio that I have in my reference station is the ICOM 7300. If you wanted to set up a station and weren't sure what to get, and you bought all the items in the reference station, I think you'd have a station you'd be happy with for several years, even if you used it really frequently and got very close to using all the features on the radio. I mean, we're all eventually going to move to a bigger or better radio, right? So anyway, the FT991A is competitor to the 7300, is a nice radio. It's not a truly software-defined radio in that it does not do direct conversion from the RF. It doesn't go RF to digital right away. It goes RF to IF before it goes to digital, which means there's an RF amp and an IF amp and stuff. From the point of view of so what, there's not much difference. I mean, superhets have reached a very high state of development and are just really, really fine radios. And the digital radios have now kind of caught up with that, and they do their conversion right at the radio frequency, and then they drop a bunch of bits on there, which has the effect of a down conversion on the frequency to the equivalent of a digital IF, and they're 100% digital. Yaesu has kind of kept to this idea of the first couple stages being analog. The reason for that, I think, is it makes it a little easier for them to do their roofing filter stuff up front. So you have a little less problem with fundamental overload, although I've never had that problem with the ICOM. So it's a perfectly good radio. Yaesu also is selling the FT7. I'm going to look it up. I said this last year. Yaesu, or last week when we were here. I'll look this up. Let's see. Yaesu aircraft spruce sporties. Yaesu, here we go. Okay, if we go to the screen here, we can look at the 710. Okay, the 710 is a new radio, and there's the FTDX10. Okay, and this is they're both very nice radios, and as near as I can tell, they compete with each other. I really don't know what the real difference is. They're it's similarly priced, and they're very nice radios. I have on my shelf here a Yaesu FTDX 3000 up there. It's no longer made, but I got that as a replacement for my Tentec a few years ago, and then when I came up with the idea for the reference station, I said, well, doggone it, I ought to be using the reference station. So I changed rigs, kind of downgraded a little bit. The FTDX 3000 is a mid-range radio. The ICOM 7300 covers from, it's a lower mid-range radio, but it's simple enough for a beginner to use. I like its menu system a lot better than the Yaesu, but I used that Yaesu for quite a while. You can do just about anything with those menus. Okay, Harry Rundle is going to be sending me a super antenna that he has. He's fixing it up a little bit, And let's see. He says that it's taking a little long to get what he wants. Lefty says no audio. That was actually before I started. I made a mistake when I set up this live stream. I said 6:15. It's actually 6:45. I'll try not to make that mistake again after this live stream when I set up the next one. Okay. Mike McBride, KJ6MGV. Hello, all. It's a warm 97 degrees and 12% humidity in Dayton, Nevada this evening. And it's been about in that range when you go down off the hill here and go into Montrose. I had to go to Delta yesterday to take a part up to the people who are working on my airplane, which is 2 weeks away from being ready and has been for months. It's still 2 weeks away from being ready. So let's see. Hello, it's warm. Okay, yeah, now Dayton, Nevada is very near Reno. And I've flown over it in a small plane. I think I've even landed at your airport, which, as I recall, is very straightforward place to land. There apparently is quite a bit of small aircraft activity out in the Carson City area. There's Minden to the south, there's Dayton to the west. You can go further west. There's several little airports around there that people can fly into and out of. I have heard rumors that Reno is under a kind of a heat dome. There's a guy who has an aircraft channel I enjoy watching who lives up near Reno. And I'll think of his name in a minute. Okay, is it just me, or is the eye in channel cut off on the visible intro page? You know, after the hacking, let's go over to the screen here and go to my website, which is dcasler.com. Now this shows the whole way it's supposed to be. Okay. Now if you go to my channel right here, you see that there's been some cutting off. And one of these days I'll go back in and fix that and get that straightened out. For right now, it's, you know, this is what it should look like down here this way. But, so anyway, yeah, it's possible that something got chopped out. Okay, let's see. 100 in Sacramento, which is, if I recall correctly, not terribly unusual to be 100 in Sacramento this time of year. I mean, it gets warm in the Central Valley there, and I've had the opportunity to experience that. Hello, David. I am thankful for your video on amateur radio. Give more explanation to new learners on communication systems. Keep up the good work. Cheers from Azhar in Malaysia. Well, welcome from the other side of the world, where it's tomorrow already. Daniel Brown doesn't affect us. Roger Bagwell, you know, I have a feeling we don't have very many viewers tonight, and I think that's because I accidentally put that 6:15 in there, and that is my bad. Roger Bagwell, KE0OG. Hi from East Coast, Anderson, South Carolina. Raining currently. I imagine you're grateful for the rain to keep the heat down. Harry Rundle says, Dave, that video on the traders and arbitrage was very good. Thank you, Harry. I worked real hard on that. It is a popular video. It's currently running see, I go to studio here, and we'll just switch over to the screen, and let's all freak out over RM 11953. Let's look at analytics and see if we can see anything. 7,000 views since it was published. This is my normal trajectory here. It went up a little bit here, and then you could tell when it started to be shared, and I think the people who are going to look at it, but it's still going up quite a bit today. This is a video about the new RM, whatever the number is. It's by a consortium of people who want to do high frequency trading, and they want to use HF to go point to point without any repeaters in between, because the repeaters add delay. And they want to get the information a millisecond or so ahead of everybody else, because that's sufficient time for them to place their orders first. And arbitrage means a difference in price between the markets. I've got an example in the video. But to be really odd, let's say a euro is selling for $2 on the London exchange and for $1 on the New York Stock Exchange, and the prices haven't caught up with. So the idea is you want to buy as many euros as you can in New York and get them over to sell in London before everybody else finds out about the price discrepancy. Now, the fact that you buy a whole bunch of euros in New York is going to push the price up. And the fact that you're selling a whole bunch of euros in London means the price is going to go down. So the markets tend to equalize, but it's like waves in a lake. You know, there's a constant shifting of the water from side to side of the lake, and that's how it works, because communications is not instantaneous. So people make their living doing these things. It's called high frequency trading, where they're trading sometimes many thousands of times an hour, and they're trading on price differences that could be smaller than a penny. And there's a lot of probability theory that goes into this, because you could lose on an exchange like that. But if you do it right, most of the time you win. And while you don't hold any particular stock for more than a few seconds, you're still skimming a lot of money off the top of the market. Where does that money come from? It comes from you and me. Because we don't have people like that at our beck and call who are doing very high frequency trading. You need a computer to do it. You can't do it by hand. So if you're day trading, you're taking bets that are a little longer in term, like hours instead of seconds. So only people with the right computers can do it, and they have to be either at the market. In fact, the New York Stock Exchange has its main computer in a data center on a floor, and clustered around it are computers belonging to these high-frequency traders. And then they want the communications. They tried putting in a single fiber optic cable. It was a single fiber optic cable all the way from London to somewhere in New Jersey, I think. And there were no repeaters. So it was, quote, instantaneous. However, the speed of light in fiber optic is slower than the speed of light in air, which is very close to the speed of light in outer space at sea. So what happens is you have a lower propagation velocity in the fiber optic cable, which means that if you had HF point to point between here and London to New York, you could get your trade in a millisecond or so earlier than anybody else. And that's what they're looking for with this. This is a service that has existed on an experimental basis for a while now, a few years. What they're trying to do is normalize it by getting the FCC regs changed and all of that stuff to permit what they're currently doing under experimental license. The frequencies they talk about in the rulemaking proposal are the frequencies they've been using, and they haven't been interfering with ham radio, so I don't think they will under the new system. However, it does bother me that these people are just trying to beat each other. None of the money they earn trickles down to us individual investors. You know, my 401k is in the stock market and the bond market. So yours probably is too, if you've got one. Anyway, that's what the video is about, and it's gotten very, very good results. Okay, Chuck Schreiber, good evening, Dave, and all Augies worldwide in 5 KVO from the hill country of South Texas, sunny and a comfortable 96. Thank you, Dave, for another educational Thursday night. Happy to be here. Ralph Leland, hi, Dave, and everyone, K4TA in Fork Union, Virginia. Leo Gustafson, KK7CLY, visiting from Albany, Oregon. Been in the 90s of late. Glad I have a portable AC in the bedroom. Yes, I can imagine. My wife likes the house fairly warm in the winter. It's 77 in the house. I got myself a split unit air conditioner just to cool this room. And it does very nicely. I can get it down to about, well, let's see what it is right now. It says 77. It doesn't feel like 77 in here. And I think I'll turn that thing on. I've got the fan on too. But it keeps it nice and cool in here and doesn't cost us very much money because it just cools the one room. So, Leo Gustafson, I was digging on more Mr. Carlson's videos, and I think it was said last week he didn't go into thorough enough details. Maybe it's hit and miss, but from his videos I've watched, he's right on top of the nitty-gritty. He is. He's good. He's very good. He has far more subscribers than I do. But then again, he's broader than just ham radio. I'm specifically focused on ham radio. He's very good at presenting things. Clearly, he's got a professorial demeanor. He just shocked himself really badly here. He's got a video about that, which proves that electric shocks can happen to anybody. Even if you're an expert like he is, it still can happen. And he's playing with a lot of old tube gear and does restorations and stuff like that. And he, you know, all that tube gear has high voltage in it. The newer radios for ham radio don't. They're 12 volt. However, some of the well, they might be. Some of the newer amplifiers run those transistors at 50 volts. So you have to get a 50 volt power supply. 50 volts is not something you want to touch. That can actually create a lethal current in your body. They say roughly for dry skin, which is quite a big caveat, that 30 volts is about the max you want to ever touch. 30 volts DC. Okay, and we use 12, that's fine. You can touch it all day, you don't have a problem with it. And Leo, Mr. Carlson's lab, he does some really, really good videos. 92 and 40% out this way. Wow, warm. Our ICOM, the Nest. Is there more to that? ICOM, well, there's three major Japanese producers, ICOM, Yaesu, and Kenwood. Kenwood has been kind of on the sidelines for a while, though they recently came out with a new radio. ICOM has really been going like gangbusters, getting radios out, but now they haven't done anything new in the last several years. Yaesu was kind of silent for a while, and then suddenly they came out with the 710 and the FTDX. I just had it up, 120, whatever it is now. They kind of leapfrog each other a little bit. You got to understand that the amateur market is a very small market for these people compared to their commercial, aviation, and military work is just much larger. For example, I have in my flight bag over here a aircraft band radio that's made by ICOM that does all the aircraft band. I keep it in my airplane as a backup radio. And also, it will receive the VHF Omni Range, the VORs, which are navigation beacons put in place by the FAA. It will receive those and actually create a picture display for you, showing where you are relative to these things, how you're moving, and so on. So ICOM is doing that. Now, I will tell you, they are selling those radios for a whole lot more money than, let's say, an amateur radio of the equivalent weight, if you will. I paid $400 some odd for that radio. You can get amateur handhelds for much less than half of that. So, you know, these companies are all involved in the commercial infrastructure. By the way, that market maker high frequency trader thing, they use step IR antennas and they use ACOM amplifiers, okay, both of which are big names in ham radio. Step IR is very high end, and the reason for that is because their primary market is commercial. The commercial will want $30,000 for an antenna. Sure, here it is. Us hams are a lot more picky about price, but there is a little bubble in federal procurement law. If you sell something to the feds, in general, you have to assure them that they are getting the best price that that company offers for that product. Now, that means you can't sell it under the table more cheaply for hams. And that's why the step IR stuff is so expensive, because it has a very large commercial content. The way those things work with those little tape measures going in and out and stuff will work on any frequency. It doesn't have to be a ham frequency, so they can use them wherever they want to. The antenna that these high frequency traders are using is a log periodic style antenna, which is only about 10 dB gain, but it covers a huge frequency range. Very broadband, low Q antenna. And that's what they need, because what they're doing is constantly changing frequencies, always looking for the best frequency. And it's similar in concept to automatic link establishment, ALE, but it's not that. It's their own proprietary version of this. And they're doing this with proprietary digital codes. And the name of the receiver or transceiver manufacturer is Trellisware. And trellis decoding is a very sophisticated way of doing digital decoding. It's what NASA uses for its deep space probes. So, I mean, these guys are, wow, a lot of stuff out there. Okay, let's Leo says, sure like my ICOM. Leo says, yeah, that video about freaking out was very informative. Robert Marmerstein says, actually, I found it very discouraging. I'm hoping to get my technician soon, but it would seem like the previous generation isn't willing to fight to keep the bands clear for us new folks. Au contraire, what my point was in the video was there's more to HF than ham radio. Always has been. Shortwave broadcasts, point-to-point, aircraft, things like that. And they've already been doing what they proposed doing for a couple years, and it has not affected us. So nobody is saying that they're going to take any frequencies away from us. What people are complaining about is what they're going to do will interfere with us. I'm not sure that that is the case. That's what my video says. So yes, the older hams are very much after protecting frequencies. The last time we actually lost frequencies was when the FCC took away 40% of the 1.25 meter band, 220 to 225 megahertz. Oh, you should have heard the moaning and complaining. My goodness. We lost 40% of it. But that means there was 60% still left. But people got so unhappy about that nobody bought any more 220 gear. The 220, everything shut down. The dual band rigs include 2 meters and 70 centimeters, but not 1.25 meters, although 1 or 2 is starting to come out with that again. The fact is there's still 3 megahertz of VHF left for us to use. That's not quite as wide as 2 meters, but it's 75% as wide. And so that's a case where I think we overreacted to what was happening, and as a result ended up shooting ourselves in the foot, because now the big amateur radio equipment makers aren't making gear for 220. So it's a vicious cycle. They don't make the gear, so it's not very active. Not very many people using it, so no point in making the gear. You see what happens when you get into this hysteria cycle. Now, there was enough hoofera over that one that they gave a megahertz back. It's 219 to 220. But that is only to be used for backhaul stations for repeaters. But 220 is out there. There are some repeaters. You can get equipment to work on it. This, let's see, it's a 578. Any tone 578 mobile rig will work 5 watts, not very much, on 220. It's almost as though they built a separate transmitter for it. But it's out there. It's still available. I mean, we should use the frequencies that we've got so that we show that we are using them. Anyone, and I'm whispering a secret right now, if you set up a scanner to listen to the 2 meter band and you set on it all the repeaters in the local area, most of the time it will have nothing on. And that's just a fact of life, the way VHF kind of works. It's not like that on HF, where we have much narrower bands. I mean, 40 meters is 300 kilohertz wide. 20 meters is 350 kilohertz wide. We get up to our first megahertz wide ham band at 10 meters, which is 1.7 megahertz. And then 6 meters is, let's see, 50 to 54, 4 meters. And of course, 4 megahertz. 2 meters is 4 megahertz. So we get our bigger bands as you go up in frequency. So anyway, there you go. So don't get unhappy about that. I think you should forge ahead with what you're doing and get your ticket and get on the air. Leo says, while you're at it, Robert, once you get your studying done, go for the general exam as well. Yes. Phil, KE0OG says hello to all from Kalamazoo, Michigan. I don't know why. I love that word, Kalamazoo. It's fun to say. Robert Marmerstein says to Leo, yes, that's the plan too. I've been doing a lot of listening with my SDR, would like to learn the rules and start doing real radio work. Well, dig in, absolutely. By the way, the ARRL offers as its video training videos that go along with its manuals are all videos that I've done. And they are, let's see, what is the word that was used? Licensed. They've licensed them. So that's good. The tech videos are outside the firewall, so you're in good shape. Okay, Leo says, Robert, more power to you. Leo says, yep, discharge those capacitors. Lawrence Paraday was on for a moment, retracted his message. Moises Morales says, hola, Dave. From Moises Morales, WP4, MOI, Ponce, Puerto Rico. Which, for all of you out there, is part of the United States. It's U.S. territory, just like the Virgin Islands or Guam or any of those other places like that. That is part of the United States. And so that's why he has a W in his call sign, because it's U.S. He says, lately here it has been really warm and stormy. Any recommendation for a good coax that stands high temperature? Actually, all the reputable coaxes can withstand high temperature. Belden makes outstanding coax. Times Microwave, of course, makes a premium coax that can withstand up to 84 degrees centigrade. That is way up there. I was just looking at it today. I'm doing a video about it. But the good, reputable American coax makers, like you can get from DX Engineering, the Messi Paolini will be good. That's from Italy. I would avoid the Chinese coax. Does that mean they don't make good coax? They do. But telling it apart from the stuff that's not good can be a real issue. I have a friend of mine who bought what he thought was LMR 400. It had the 400 in the name. But when he wanted me to put a connector on it. And when I went to look at it, it was skinnier than 400. And when I stripped back the coax, the center conductor, which is aluminum with copper plated on it, every time I would touch it, it would break off. Just broke. I mean, it was so brittle that it would break. I had a heck of a time getting a connector on that. Anyway, I think he's still using that gear. I would buy your coax. Try DX Engineering or Ham Radio Outlet, since Puerto Rico is an American, part of the American market. Try one of those. If you want the Messi Paolini, it's premium coax. You can get it through MFJ. And maybe now DX Engineering, I'm not sure. DX Engineering started out as a hobby on the side of a guy who did race cars, stuff like that, you know, hot rods and so on. And he had all the selling infrastructure in place, including warehouse room. So he started DX Engineering primarily for towers, coax, masts, all the stuff to build your own Yagis and towers and all that kind of stuff. And now they have jumped in wholeheartedly into the entire ham radio market. I've spoken with the owner, talked to him at Dayton. I did a video about them not terribly long ago. And let's see, it was a little bit after the last Dayton, so about a year ago. And they're just a great company. I like them. I like their customer service. Now, am I sponsored by DX Engineering? No. Am I sponsored by Ham Radio Outlet? No. Am I sponsored by MFJ? No. None of them. Although MFJ told me they're going to be sending me one of their Morse tutors to take a look at. Okay, so all of those American-made coaxes should stand that high temperature, and it will be in the specs. Hans Killinger literally just got back from VE testing, just got my tech and general. Congratulations to you. Absolutely, that is super. Congratulations, welcome to Ham Radio. Now get on the air. We've got to get you on the air. If you're looking for some guidance on what to get for an HF station, go to dcasler.com/reference, the word reference. And that will list all the things you need for putting a new station together, a general station. And for VHF, of course, you can get whatever handheld you like. There are a number of good ones out there. And if you want to get into digital, find out what's done locally and do that. Because the digital world is split between the three big players, are DMR, D-Star, and System Fusion, which is also Wires X, which is analog. But those are the three big ones. There are others floating around out there. If you don't want to get into digital right now, the FM radios are not very expensive. So, okay, so very well done, Hans, and welcome to Ham Radio. Thanks for the video yesterday, Sean says, KM6NFO. Well done, 100 in Sacramento. And best wishes to all. Hans says, bombed my extra, but didn't study. The extra is significantly harder than the general. I would say that the general's kind of a 2 times tech, and the extra is like a 10 times tech. I mean, it is a significant step up. They used to have the advanced class license in the middle. They've done away with that. So there's a pretty good gap between what you need to know for that and the other. If you want to study the amateur extra, join the league. Join the ARRL. It'll cost you about what it costs you to fill your car with gas one time. And so that $49, I realize that that's got a little sticker shock, but I paid $84 recently to fill my Jeep. So, yeah, join the league. I think that's mandatory. And then you'll get QST, or you can get the new magazine on the air. I'd get QST because you can look at them all online. And then once you get online, you can go to learn.arrl.org. Learn.arrl.org. You have to log in with your ARRL login credentials, and then all the extra videos are right there. Go to the On the Air section, and you'll find the amateur extra videos in there. Okay, so congratulations to you. I think that's just wonderful. I'm excited for you. Let's see. Leo, right on, Hans. Congratulations. Lawrence Paraday, how far below should ladder line be away from a leg of a wire dipole going the same direction as a leg? KD9WES. The answer is, if you've got a dipole, the lateral line should come straight down from that. Now, the key thing is perpendicular. Okay, so if you've got a dipole going this way, but you bring the lateral line this way, right toward the house, you're okay there too. But I would think a half wavelength, maybe more if you can, a quarter wavelength at a minimum. Robert Marmerstein, does that mean this change will actually bring prices on equipment down for hams? No. This change, this consortium who want to do things. Um, it has nothing to do with ham radio. Those radios that they are purchasing are extremely high-end radios, and they're paying a bloody fortune for them. And, we're talking $1 million or more for one station, and that's tissue paper for these guys. These are the 1%. These guys have big bucks. Money means nothing to them, except they want more. So, no, it's not going to make a difference. Now, I will tell you that the Chinese radios for VHF are the least expensive. There was trying to remember, GS 5T. Is that it? No. No. I made a video about a radio, a Chinese radio that had excellent performance in its transmitter finals. It didn't put out all the spurious junk that the others do. But go in the $40 to $50 price range. I am, or did I already review? I just had a radio come to me and I reviewed it. So there's a fairly recent review. And you can get these radios on Amazon, but beware what's on Amazon because you really don't know what you're getting. So look for something I've already reviewed. You can go to my channel and search my channel for the reviews and see all what's there. Sean, KM6NFO, has added $10 to the chat revenue. Sean, thank you very much. That goes right into channel funds and helps me a great deal. Baseman Junior 100, lots of El Nino rain in Tennessee. Boy, that's interesting because the El Nino's in the Pacific, but it certainly can create weather that will sweep across the country and head your way. And we've been watching it on TV as this weather comes from west to east. Pete Dayton's channel, I have a shot at ILS on my Yaesu handheld. Good. What's ILS? Instrument Landing System is what I would know that is as a pilot. Interesting. John Hummel Newell, Victor Echo 5, JHN. Hello, Augies and Dave. Hello, how are you? Hans says, thanks, Leo. Arthur Peterson. Hans Killinger, congratulations from Wasilla, Alaska, KB7, FXJ. Lawrence Paraday, and this is his first super chat, says $10 and puts a number 1 up there. Thank you very much, Lawrence. When you do the super chats, you can also add a message to that. Hans Killing, thank you, Arthur. Hans, Amazon has a tri-band that does 220 for about $80. Look up, there's a website called eHams. That's Echo Hotel Alpha Mike Sierra.com. And they have reviews. You have to look down in the menu on the right-hand side and you'll see reviews. And then you can go find all of these radios and see what people think of them. Robert Marmerstein has added $10. And I'm looking at Robert's picture here. I think Robert's pretty young. So congratulations and welcome to Ham Radio. A lot of old men like me, but good to see people coming in. He's added $10 to the chat revenue, says thanks. The historical perspective is very helpful and encouraging. Tim Backus, 119 at my home in Tucson, Arizona. Really heating up the antenna even though my amp is off. Yes, yes, absolutely. KB7 ORB. I was in Tucson once, it was 120. And I had to fly to Grand Junction. And it was commercial service. And they only let about half the people on the airplane. and they said that if I took my bag on board instead of gate checking it, that I could take it with me, but otherwise it would have to follow later because it would upset the weight and balance enough on the airplane to have that extra weight at the back where they were doing the gate checking stuff. So they were trying really hard to get as many people in there as they could and still be able to take off. You know, once you've taken off and gotten to altitude, it's a lot cooler, everything works better, and it's not an issue to land since you're coasting down. But that was interesting. I was a frequent flyer at the time and was 1 or 2 notches up from the bottom, and so that's why I got on the airplane. I didn't. It was hot. I tell you, it was hot. Okay, so good luck with that heat down there. Wendell Booth, working on my general class. Are the videos on ARRL out of the new manual? The answer to that is almost. I just sent them to the league a couple days ago. I don't know if Steve has had a chance to put them up, but I will tell you this. There are minimal changes from the old videos. So you can use the old videos to help with your study. And as you're working through them, we might get to the point where Steve has them up. Okay. Sorry. Okay, Optical Man Jeff, KE0OG, sends $15 to chat revenue. Thanks, Dave, for all the time you spend helping hams out. It is much appreciated. Thank you very much, Jeff. I appreciate that. And anybody who'd also like to support the channel through chat revenue, down at the bottom where you type in your chat, there's a $sign below that if you want to throw something in. You don't have to, but if you do, I do appreciate it very much. Steve Genoway, the problem with Messi and Paolini is their low-quality connectors. I put one of their connectors on. I do have one run of Messi and Paolini Coax, and that goes out to the step IR vertical, big IR vertical. And I remember putting those connectors on that stuff. It took me a while to figure it out. Cliff Bolts, WD40BP. Congrats, Hans. Hans, I got a Zygo G90 and a wire in a tree. That will allow you to listen, but please don't expect that that is going to get you much on the air. CW maybe, CW. But for sideband, you might be able to get some people. You're operating QRP. And that's a little hard for somebody who's never really done much operating on HF. It's a specialist technique. So I would, keep trying, but persevere. The way to get stations is not to call CQ. You probably won't get much response to that. You can try it, of course. The way is to tailgate on the end of somebody else's conversation. You're listening to the conversation, they say 73 to each other, and as soon as the last one is done, boom, you call them and add your own call sign. Not just your own call sign, but call them and then your own call sign. And now you've got a chance of having a conversation. So there you go. And keep a log because it's nice to do that. Okay, Hans, thank you. Cliff, Mike McBride, KJ6MGV. I order M&P products directly from them online, and it is less expensive than our local outlets in most cases, even with international shipping. In some cases, I couldn't get what I wanted from DX Engineering or MFJ. No, it's very possible. Leo says I was paying about $49 2 decades ago for my AMA membership, as I recall. Is that the American Motorcycling Association? That's what AMA was to me for many years, till I finally got rid of my bikes. Larry from the Philippines, Delta Uniform 1 / November 6 Hotel Papa X-Ray. Good morning from Manila. Quick question, what is the purpose of an EEPROM? Been told my FT857D might have a problem there. Got everything else working, but someone mentioned it to me. Well, the EEPROM holds the firmware for your radio. If it's working at all, it's likely all working, because it is a computer in there. Now, the thing about EEPROMs is that the EE stands for electrically erasable. So things as seemingly benign as a nearby lightning strike can create havoc with these EEPROMs. Now, electrically erasable, they're still programmable, but you need the right equipment to program them, and it's not something that Yaesu would normally support. And I believe that's an older radio. If it does still somewhat work for you, I'd keep using it. Another thing you can look at is in those old radios, there's often a small battery, like a coin-sized battery in there, that's used to keep certain parameters in a small memory current, because most memory will let its contents go every time you remove the power. Now, there are SRAM, which is a RAM that doesn't lose its storage if you remove power, but it's cheaper to put the battery in there and go ahead. Now, that battery is designed to last 10 years. So if it's been more than that since that radio was at the factory, you'll have to talk to your local experts on this, but you may want to look at replacing that battery. Give you another 10 years with that. Now, the 7300 has the same thing, except it's a rechargeable battery. And so if you leave it sit, not connected to any power, for like 2 months or so, there goes your memory. So what they say is to every 2 or 3 weeks, if you're not using it, turn on the power for a while. It doesn't matter whether the radio is on or off, it will still charge that battery. Okay, so I don't know if it's a battery or a supercapacitor or what, but just leaving the power on for like 2 hours or maybe a day, something like that, will get that battery charged again. Okay, so let's see what we've got here. Lost my place here. Okay. Going to the dog park, New General, and having trouble with high SWR on Buddy Stick. Any budget analyzers that are good? Yeah, a Nano VNA. And Nano VNA, for a long time I did not like them because they were very difficult to use. So I've recently put out a video that will get you past that, to the point where you can use it to look at the SWR. Now, a buddy pole. That's the classic buddy pole, and I happen to have one. I did a video on it. 40 is the hardest band to tune. Start with 20 or something like that and see what you can do. Buddy pole is it looks like a dipole or something like it, but it's highly loaded. Now, highly loaded, that means there's inductance in the circuit. And it will still tune, because the short rods that go out are, because they're so short, they're capacitive. So you got to get the inductance to match the capacitance. And one thing you can do, like with the Nano VNA, is you can watch a graph of your SWR, and if you're low, you know, you need less loading. If you're high, you need more loading. And uh, so that can help get that. Once you get used to that buddy pole, you'll know almost instantly where to put the connectors, and it will serve you quite well. It's you don't hear about it as much as you used to, but the buddy pole is. I have one. Um, Paid for it with channel funds, by the way. They didn't give it to me, um, and it does work. It really does work, but tuning 40 can be an issue. Okay. Let's see. American motorcycles. So yeah, it is. Okay. Um, New General. Okay, that was the buddy stick. Lefty says AMA. Oh, that's the American Motorcycle Association. Yeah. Mike McBride, KJ6MGV. Good to hear from you. I get the super cool M&P connectors that are super easy to attach to their cable with one very simple cutting tool and a tiny amount of solder. Oh, clearly I didn't have those. Hans said, Larry, EEPROM is a chip that stores data, probably where your saved channels and settings are stored. Chris G7 from the UK, where it is now well into the wee hours of the morning, said, is your plane repaired yet, Dave? It's 2 weeks away from being ready and has been for a couple months now. The one part that we're looking for is the exhaust manifold. It's an assembly that has all the connections to the exhaust ports, quasi muffler, and a tailpipe that spits everything out the side. And the one that is in there they discovered was cracked. If we can't get one from Australia, it's an Australian engine. If we can't get one from them, then we'll try and repair the old one, but it's going to be iffy. We've been in touch with the Australian people, and they say they're going to build one and ship it to one of their dealers who will immediately send it to Delta, Colorado here to put on. So like I said, we're 2 weeks away from having that thing back in the air again. Needless to say, the first several times I go back in the air, I'm going with an instructor so that I will, you know, even though I have the license, I'm not, quote, current because you have to do 3 takeoffs and full stop landings every 3 months to be considered current. So I need to go spend some time with an instructor. At some point it will go on the market for financial reasons. We also sold our motorhome. We're just trying to get debts paid off, you know. We're old people. Not good to have debts. Okay, let's see. Larry in the Philippines says someone gave me a Baofeng and only carry it when I have to as a backup. My batteries on the FT2 is my primary. Very good. And they have a typhoon coming there. Typhoon is the same as a hurricane. Same idea. Same amount of water, same amount of winds. I went through a typhoon in Manila when I was on my Mormon mission there 50 years ago. So, yeah, it's a little frightening there. Lefty says, Leo, okay, thank you. Mike McBride, KJ6MGV. Oh, I just read that one. Andy Cowley, hi, Chris, brother. Larry says, Hans, it is easy to replace. Very good. Glenn Martin, hello from far west Missouri area, N0QFT. Hi, Glenn. Glenn checks in about every week. And good to have you with us, a regular. A lot of you are regulars. Larry, DU /N6HPX. Been told the EEPROM may need to be replaced as 15-year-old rig. 15 shouldn't be too old for an EEPROM. It shouldn't lose its memory in that period of time, but it can. Like I said, a nearby lightning strike could do it. But replacing it, you've got to then program it. So that's where it could get interesting. So going to the dog park, so lucky to be in the Pacific Northwest seeing all these high temps. Mike McBride, KJ6MGV. Larry, depends on your experience working with circuit boards. If the chip is located in a push-in socket, then easy. If soldered in place, not so much. I once took out a big, long, hairy prom off a circuit board. I've got a piece of equipment up here that actually has a little motor, and it's a heated tip, and you pull the motor and it runs a little fan in there. It sucks the solder out, and really easy to make changes doing that. Otherwise, you can do it with solder, with the solder braid, or solder removal braid, which is a copper braid that's been coated in dried flux. Now, my experience with that is that there's not enough flux there. So if you get yourself a little can of flux from Home Depot or somewhere like that, any electrical supply store, there are two kinds of flux, rosin and acid. Do not get the acid, get the rosin. And take a toothpick, the end of a toothpick, grab a little tiny titch of the flux, rub it along that copper thing, and suddenly it'll start sucking solder really quick. By the way, that one tiny little jar of flux will last you a lifetime. Use it so slowly. Now we have Bob Ackerman adds $10, and YouTube informs me that this is Bob's first super chat, so thank you very much, Bob. Bob AE0UB sent $10 from Missouri. Thank you very much. I really appreciate that. It goes right into the chat revenue, which goes right into channel funds. Okay, Jason DiCarlo, hello from Delta, Pennsylvania. I always enjoy listening to your live stream while I work. From W3IG, thank you very much. Mike McBride, KJ6MGV, you need to try the M&P EVO connectors. Really easy and nice quality. I'll have to do that. Take a look at it. By the way, Times Microwave has their own connectors too. And they sent me a bunch and a kit with all the tools for both LMR 240 and LMR 400. And I've done videos about both. Their sets are expensive because this is, after all, Primo Coax, and this is commercial grade stuff. But boy, it's sure easy to put on a connector. And you don't have to solder anything, because when the center goes into the center, there's little clamps that just go like that on the center part. Shakespeare makes some connectors like that too for boats, boat stuff. They're really expensive. So anyway, the M&P, okay, Bob Ackerman, AMA, Academy of Model Aeronautics. Okay, never done that. I've got a drone. I should try it. Larry from the Philippines. I might be having to reinstall the memory channels. Yeah. Jason DiCarlo, how bad is it to not keep a log? Assuming I don't violate the rules, I don't contest and not sentimental. You do not need to keep a log. It is no longer required. Has not been required for decades. However, I keep a log here because if I get a QSL card, I like to check it against my own log. But I do keep a log. In fact, there's a video about a rubber stamp that I had made. What's this right here? This rubber stamp stamps into my log, quote unquote, which is somewhere here. This is my log. I know it looks a mess, but note that I just hit that with that rubber stamp, and I've got a place to write down all the stuff about what's going on. And I also write down like what antenna I'm using and whether or not I'm using the amplifier and stuff like that. Like this bottom one here, 17-inch whip. That might be 17-foot whip. I've got one of the things I'm evaluating right now, purchased with channel funds, was a Wolf River Coils Take It Along antenna, TIA antenna. And I just have to get to it. I mean, I assembled it. I did an initial video, but I really want to test it because it makes heavy use of loading. And normally when you load an HF whip, the compromise you make is in bandwidth, not performance. So it's a higher Q antenna. So I want to see if that's really true. And I just haven't done it yet. I'm working on other videos. So we'll do that. Okay, so no, you don't need to keep a log. James McDonough says, thumbs up. All right, Dave, watching from England. Larry says, Dave, I checked with the local tech and he knows the battery. Okay, good. Going to the dog part, isn't the FAA requiring IDs for model planes and drones now? Yeah, they are. I have one. I have a recreational use certificate from them, plus I have a little certificate that shows I passed their little course. Now, I've thought about going after commercial drone pilot, and I just haven't gotten around to it because I'm already a pilot. And the stuff that you have to know is about airspace and reporting and accidents and stuff like that. And I already got that for the pilot, so. Let's see. Yes, they are requiring IDs. If you're commercial, you have to have an ID for every individual drone you own. If you're recreational, one ID number will do for all your drones because they figure you can only fly one at a time. So I guess, I don't know. Okay, let's see. Steve Genoway, XRDS-RF requires compression but no solder. A simple crimp on the center conductor replaces the solder. Will not work on Messy because of inferior to gold center conductor sleeve. Talk to Messy. Okay. Jason DiCarlo, yes, it is called remote ID. Now, that's something I haven't really dug into because my old DJI Spark doesn't have anything like that. And I don't know what to do about that. I mean, where I live out here, I'm in Class G airspace, and there's there's, you know, I think the reason they want the remote ID is so that they can spot them on their system. You know, my aircraft has a transponder on it, and it tells the FAA and any other airplane in the area that happens to be listening to ADS-B in and out. I have the out. I also have a little radio up here for the in, and plan to play with that a little bit while I'm still flying. So yeah, their concern is that there already have been a number of collisions with aircraft, and a tiny little drone that weighs a pound will make a big dent in a wing. Aircraft are designed to be strong where they need to be strong, and otherwise are remarkably flimsy because of the weight. You got to keep the weight down. So I've seen they'll take a big sheet of stainless or whatever that's really, really, really thin. I mean, the thing just wobbles on them while they move it over to the cutting table, and they cut out these like the ribs for the wing. And what they do is they curve them in, and put all these kinds of things in it. So it's got a little bit of resistance to bending. Then you rivet in the sides of the thing. And then you put all that together with all the other ones, and you've got a really strong wing for pushing up on the airplane. But if you run into something, it will just tear that to shreds. So this is the problem with irresponsible drone operators who are ruining it for all the other people. So anyway, I have the drone. I don't know what I'm going to be doing about the remote ID. I really don't, because I don't know of an addition or something I can plug into the drone that will do it. And I'm not sure, maybe if I use my phone to control it, maybe the phone can send the data. I don't know how that works. Okay, Larry says, correction of now, battery for the radio. My next trick is my IC706 Mark II. Same issue, the battery. Display, got a fellow ham coming here to do the work. Needs new polarized film that goes over the top of it. Yeah. Leo says to Jason, since we have to keep RF assessments, may as well keep a general station log. Yes, we do have to do now RF assessments and keep a record of them. Now that can be as simple as a file folder in your desk drawer, but they do need to be kept now. Harry Rundle has added $5 to the chat revenue and says, thank you again for the wonderful content for us hams. I thoroughly enjoy these Q&A sessions. Keep up the good work. Well, thank you very much, Harry. I appreciate that. Larry says, my grandsons used to play with toy guns, but discovered aviation. The toy guns are gone, and now they're checking out flight radar and watching every plane. Oh, yeah. You can go online and see where every plane that has ADS-B is at any given time. There was a guy who on Twitter would constantly follow Elon Musk's private plane and put on Twitter the geographic coordinates in the city and all that of where Musk was. He was sort of a Musk follower. Well, now Musk owns Twitter, so you can guess what happened to that. Anyway, 3D print the manifold? I don't think so. This is pretty high temperature stuff. I think we're going to have to stick with steel on this one, and the right kind of steel that can handle the vibration and all that sort of thing. But it'd be fun. Larry says it's Typhoon Yolanda. Yolanda, I remember that's a Filipino name. Leo Gustafson, let's see. Just last night I was watching some amazing video of quarter-scale aircraft in Germany and stateside. I have seen some truly huge aircraft. There was one of the 787, and they actually have these little jet engines that are about that big that they put on the wheels on those things. You have to push compressed air through them to get them to start. But once they start, you've got a 4-jet engine aircraft that takes up a good piece of the runway to take off. I saw another video of a guy who had built a very large equivalent of a C-5 or something like that, a military aircraft, and he was doing his maneuvers and the wing came off. Oh, thousands of dollars in the dirt right there. But yeah, they make those big in Germany. They make those big, huge things. And what really interests me is that when they land them, they're looking up at the aircraft and they're landing it. I would be scared to death. I would rather get a first-person view so I could see that airfield, see my speed and everything and so on, and flare it and all that. But he was looking over this way at the airplane. Amazing. Absolutely amazing. Okay, let's see. Being flown by radio, yes. Larry, just curious, is there a program to do the EEPROM? We'll check with the radio. You'll have to ask around about that. That's really digging into the radio, and I don't know how to do that. You may find some stuff on the web. Hans says, great idea regarding the flux on the desolder braid. Can't wait to try. I still have my late grandfather's can of flux. Make sure it is rosin flux, not acid flux, okay? I have acid flux for soldering plumbing, but you don't want to use it on electrical components because it will eat away at them. Okay, let's see. Been using Logger 32 and upgraded it, but then it stopped working, so I'm back to paper logs. Yeah, it does happen. I use the N3FJP, all contact log, and then I use his contest logs too, and they all work together. And N3FJP works with, no, there's a little in-between program, but it works with WSJTX, so it'll automatically log when I do FT8. Okay, let's see. Bob Ackerman loves his Wolf River TIA, but does add more radials. I am testing it with the 3 supplied radials. Okay, after I'm finished testing it with that, I may add more radials and see how much that changes performance. Dave, what's your experience with buddy poles? Well, I mean, they're portable, very portable. They do work, but the stand for them, you need to put sandbags over the legs or something, or that thing will tip in a heartbeat. And that's not good for the thing when it tips in a heartbeat. They've also recently made a so-called portable, it's a hex beam. And I saw one once, and it looked really flimsy. But they're selling that, and that you can get some gain that way. But again, you've got the problem. You know, what I would recommend you do, if you're taking your pickup truck, put either 3 5-gallon drums half filled with concrete, dry concrete, and then tie radials to those to keep that thing in place, or take some big building cement blocks or something like that, because the wind will catch those things, and you really want to have that guide. You'll have to take that along. A lot of places that you might use a buddy pole, like a city park, will not want you putting anything into the ground. No stakes. Everything has to be above ground. Hence the suggestion for the concrete blocks. Okay, already having your private ticket, you can take Part 107 online. Well, that's interesting. Actually, I only have my Sport Pilot, but I'll check that out. If I can do that online, that'd be great. Chris Robinson can't wait for the spoofing and invisibility cloaking games to begin with RID. Remote ID, yes. And that's been done with airplanes too, I know. No matter how the system is arranged, you know, defenders are always at a disadvantage. A determined attacker will always get in. So, and Part 107, I think, is the, is that the drone stuff? I'll have to look at it. Chris Robinson, let's see, Rob Ackerman may have to add an external remote ID attached to the drone. Newer drones have it installed inside. I don't know where to get one. I hope DJI has something. ADSB is the same and yet so different, yes. Rare remote ID, some vendors are starting to make accessory modules that satisfy all the requirements. I'll have to look for one. Just Google DJI Spark Remote ID. George Markward, a few years ago I watched your video series on the extra exam. With it and lots of study passed, I took your advice, signed up as a VE. I'm now on the team at the Orlando Amateur Radio Club, WD4ORM. Well, George, congratulations, and thank you for the good services that you are providing to the amateur radio community. I'm sure that you are finding it very satisfying. Jason DiCarlo, not cheap and not very lightweight for small models. And the spark isn't very big. Kaya Gundoger, Charlie Echo Tango, there's a number in there somewhere. Hi everyone, from Tango Alpha 2, Sierra Lima Charlie, and I'm not really sure just where that is. Let's see, I think that's in Central or South America, but I could be totally far off on that. Why don't we just quickly look it up here. It's TA2SLC. We're going to go to QRZ. TA2SLC. Okay. Turkey. He's in Turkey. Well, and there's a better picture of him there. Okay, and he's got some pictures down here of him doing his work, and that is great. You are doing some really cool stuff with ham radio. I congratulate you. That is very good. Wow. Okay, thank you for checking in with us. That is totally cool. Larry, when I was on USNS Rappahannock, we pulled into UAE and I bought a helicopter. My grandson wants to fly it, but the remote disappeared. He wants to see it fly. Oh, that's too bad. We're getting close to time here. Chris Robinson, so where does that leave us old guys with our old balsa wood 1970 Piper Cub RC planes that barely have enough smarts to be considered remote control? Are we required to upgrade to an RID? I don't know. Those are considered model airplanes, which are different from drones. If you are a member of a model aircraft club, like in your area, you can find out from them. Because when they started putting these ID requirements on drones, the traditional RC community was incensed, and they forced some concessions in the RID thing. Okay. Leo Scott, I've been using the Buddy Pole tripod and mast with their hex beam and couldn't be happier. There you go. John Ward, hello from W3OJ. Hello, good to have you. Larry, hope you stay safe. Good luck. Yeah, with that typhoon coming in. Seen one where they had a mocked up B-17 that looked real, but it was a model. It was fun to watch. Yolanda was a super typhoon and it did some super damage. Yeah, thanks Robert. We'll see what happens. Hans says it's rosin. Grandfather was a supervising electrician for the old Thor tool company. Thor the Hammer. NC, hello from K0NMC. Hello. Bob Ackerman, I was unable to take my Part 107 online, had to go to FAA approved testing site. There's a couple in Grand Junction, one of which charges a lot more than the other. DJI wants you to buy a new drone. I don't have money for a new drone. There's nothing wrong with the old one. Curious, I have extra ARRL manual 9 edition. Is there much difference with the current to the 9th edition? We're going to update the extras this coming year. And I think 9th edition is current, isn't it? They allow you to put a remote ID label on it. I use Brother P-Touch labels with my remote ID. Okay, I've got that Brother P-Touch too. Ralph, 73, and everyone have a nice evening. Wes, hi from Wes, KF7BWS. I use N3FGP with All modes and apps work great, and I love it. Model airplanes are now drones. Okay, there's the word on it. We are out of time. Thank you all so very much for participating in this week's live stream. I look forward to seeing you this coming week. I'll set that up right now and try to get it at 6:45 instead of 6:15. So there we go. It will be at 6:45 U.S. Mountain Daylight Time. It's 8:15 here, 02:15 UTC, so 7:15 would be 01. So it'd be 00:45 UTC. So, to everybody, thank you all very much for being here, and until we next meet, 73.